Texas evening greets everybody here, and we certainly greet you to the Pirelli World Challenge Grand Prix of Texas here at Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. An absolutely amazing racetrack, of course. And as we are getting ready to go racing here, this is a special treat as we have a third SprintX 1-hour race coming this weekend from the Grand Prix of Texas. It is, of course, the makeup race for the rain-postponed round at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, the 4th round of the championship, much earlier in the season. And so we get an extra event to be able to enjoy here at this great venue. Of course, all thoughts certainly are a couple of hours east of here with everything going on in Houston, Texas. And a number of teams, drivers, representatives, fans, etc. are here from Houston. And our thoughts certainly go out to everybody there. But the series and the competitors, including those from Houston, said, no, we need to go race. We need to bring valuable economy interests into this area. And, of course, they want to race anyway. So we are here and ready to go. I'm Greg Creamer along with Calvin Fish. Jeff Lepper will be down in pit lane for us. And this is a sweet opportunity, Cal, to be able to have a third of these races to be able to call amazing fields.
Yeah, kind of unique, though, because the grid is lined up how they would have lined up for that second race at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. So theoretically, at least, you could have cars that were very strong there and will not perform as well here at COTA. And vice versa, you could have cars that didn't perform well at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park and be very strong here. So we should see a nice little mix-up here once we see the green tonight. Well,
I think that's the interesting, conundrum, if you will, in a way, is the opportunity for teams that maybe were struggling there to really have an opportunity, and vice versa. It's sure going to be fun to watch it all play out here. And, of course, they have been, able to get out and do practice and the like here at this track. And one of the things they've been dealing with is exceptionally warm temperatures. I mean, we're talking mid-90s here, and it's made this pretty challenging for them.
It really has. Talking to a number of the teams and drivers throughout the course of the day, tire degradation is a big factor here in terms of making the tires last throughout the course of the stint. There's a mandatory pit stop that has to happen between 25, 35 minutes in, but you're only allowed to change the driver. So basically, you've got to make those tires last for 60 minutes, and you can literally have these things fall off, not off the car, but in terms of lap performance, off 2 to 3 seconds very, very quickly if you really abuse them. So you really want your teammate to take it somewhat easy during the first half of this race before he turns it over, so you got something to fight with to the checkered flag tonight.
Well, it's an interesting dynamic, too, because obviously they're not going to be starting on the tires that they qualified on in Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, so they do get a little bit of a fresher tire to race on. That's going to help. Yeah,
it'll be a fresh set of Pirelli P0s, as would have been the case on day 2 at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. So it's a fresh set. They don't have to worry about that. But even so, in qualifying simulations this afternoon, drivers are saying after the second lap, basically the lap time was gone. You couldn't repeat it. So it's going to be effective tonight, and certainly they'll start with slightly lower tire pressures and such, so that could be a factor as well. You got to bring them in, try and baby them, and have something for the end.
That's going to be fun to watch. And, of course, one of the interesting dynamics is we're going to see this all unfolding as we head into darkness here. That's going to be one of the fun parts of this event as well.
Yeah, it got moved up, actually, 30 minutes. Yeah. Originally, it was slated for a 7:30 local start time. It got moved up to 7 o'clock. I think everyone realized last night it's going to be pretty dark here at 8:30 tonight, so that should certainly ease that consideration a little bit.
And we have the field coming to life down in pit lane. You see the signal from the official at the front of the grid. So this field is getting ready. Cal, for the people that may be joining us for the first time, not exactly super familiar with SprintX, tell us a little bit about the format. You've alluded to some of it.
Yeah, we've moved from the traditional 50-minute sprint race with no mandatory pit stop to now a 60-minute event. There's a mandatory pit stop window that occurs 25 minutes into this race and ends 35 minutes in, so a 10-minute window there. The leader will be the first car to have the opportunity to make that pit stop within the window. So once they realize that the leader will be pitting within that 25-minute window, he'll get a board. Everyone has to see that board at start-finish before they can hit the pits. And then it's a 60-second pit lane delta. So from the moment they hit pit lane to the moment they leave for the Pro-Pro combination, 60 seconds has to elapse or more, and 90 seconds for the Pro-Am combination. So you got to be really on the ball there. We saw the TR3 group from the Ferrari, Mancinelli, and Scuro really cut it fine at Utah. I think it was 60.3 or something.
Exactly.
Literally within a few hundredths of a second to that that time limit, and other people will give up a little bit, 2-3 seconds, and that can cost you track position after the pit stop.
And did indeed. We saw that happen, and guys, it'd be 63 seconds, and they'd come out 2-3 spots back. And then there's the other side of the coin. We had one of the cars end up with a stop that was a bit shy, and that means a drive-through. And if it isn't done during the race, they actually do it as a drive-through, what they call an equivalent penalty. And so that can certainly affect things as well. To give you an idea, you know, even though this is a race from Canada, just in the practice sessions earlier today, that number 31 Ferrari is really working here. And they showed some really good pace earlier. But I would say the guys in the number 9 McLaren, Alvaro Prent and Ben Barnicoat, have to be kind of pleased as they were up in the top 3 in that practice session. And they're in for, they're in a fight here, certainly in that overall combined points championship for Alvaro.
Yeah, for Alvaro, this is a critical race here. To have that poor grid position with his teammates starting, they've got to somehow try and get that car up in the top 5. You'd have to figure Long and Bergmeister, with Bergmeister starting alongside our Paul Sitter, Jerome Bleekemolen there in the 58 Wright Motorsports Porsche. You got to think they're going to be in the big points. Jordan Taylor there in the blue Cadillac, sharing that with Michael Cooper. He'll be towards the sharp end. So the real key is going to be on that McLaren. How much progress can they make with Barnicoat starting?
Yeah, and Murad and Dial in the number 2 Mercedes, 4th here in practice today. They start 3rd. Opportunity there. Jeff Leppard down in pit lane. What are you hearing?
Well, you talked about it earlier, how this is the makeup race at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park getting rained out. A lot of Pro-Am combinations not able to make their drivers that were at Canada attend this event. So therefore, you'll see a few cars in the back of the pack that had to get moved back due to having to do that driver change.
That makes absolute sense. Obviously, you get some of those drivers couldn't make both, and so as a result, you do have to move back in the field a little bit. And we have an interesting dynamic here, obviously. On the overall pole, we have the 54 Pro-Am car from Black Swan Racing, Jerome Bleekemolen and Tim Pappas. And remember, this is the second race of the 2 there, where the Pro finishes the first race, often will get the fast lap. Few are better at that than Jerome Bleekemolen. So we have a Pro-Am car starting up front, but as you pointed out, they have to deal with that 30-second longer stop. It makes it tough.
It does, and for guys like Bergmeister, Dial, Ricky Taylor, Jordan Taylor, they can't get too involved in Jerome Bleekemolen. I think he'll have great pace anyway. He was quick here yesterday and top one of the practice sessions. So I think he's going to be slowing them down. Just follow him and realize once the pit stop happens, you should leapfrog around that Mercedes.
Confirmation coming from race control. Lights are out on the beautiful Cadillac ATS-V. Safety car, the official vehicle provided by Cadillac, along with our official medical vehicle, the Escalade, that provides immediate response during the course of a weekend. Cadillac, a great partner, and we are getting ready to go. As you said, lights out now. When they get the lights out signal, that's when the weaving and scrubbing is supposed to stop, and they're supposed to start forming up, and they are doing just that up at the front. And boy, I'll tell you, what a field. Bleekemolen alongside Bergmeister, Dial alongside Ricky Taylor, Jordan Taylor alongside the number 31 Ferrari, Nicolo Scarò, who's been so fast this year. I mean, this is a lineup that is just spectacular.
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, whichever half of the race you're looking at, there's some amazing talent in this field this weekend.
And again, it'll be 60 minutes of competition here as we get this done. The pace car has made its escape field heading into the VP Racing Fuels acceleration zone. And there's some markers here that these front row has to hit. And then they will be released, lead the rest of the field up into a huge 133-foot climb into turn 1 with an extremely wide, inviting, and treacherous braking zone up there. We've seen this get awfully interesting before. Here we go, getting ready to go racing at Circuit of the Americas, Pirelli World Challenge Grand Prix of Texas. First of the 3 races is underway. Green flag flies, and Bleekemolen gets the jump, leads him up the hill, but way down to the inside comes Jordan Taylor.
Jordan Taylor does peek to the inside. He's got to be thinking about the championship, of course. He eases back in behind Dial. Look at that. Sanchez right in the middle of the mix there in the Nissan.
And look at Bergmeister. Even though you saw Bleekemolen get the run and look like he had the launch.
Someone's forced wide there.
Yeah, the Ferrari gave the Nissan a little bit of a hip check. Sanchez doing a nice job to avoid any contact here. But again, what a move by Bergmeister to sweep right around Bleekemolen into the lead.
Look at that, Jordan Taylor taking a look down the inside of the Ferrari. Remember, these tires aren't completely up to temperature and pressure just yet.
Up through the very tricky 7, 8, 9 complex. Now, turn 10, this fast downhill sweeper leading into turn 11. Bleekemolen in that black Mercedes has to wonder, how did Bergmeister get that move done around the outside?
Just looked like he was able to generate his tire temperature really early and had the confidence in the car to make that move. Certainly it's a great driver lineup. Pat Long, Jörg Bergmeister, so much success over the years in sports car competition.
Yeah, behind that Nissan, we saw one of the Acuras getting into a little side-by-side bit of
Ferrari getting super defensive there.
Look at that, yeah. Down into turn 12. That back straight here is immensely long. I think that's the number. We got a full course caution. Getting a report there's debris down on the front straight. And I think the number 4 of Pumpelly and the 43 of Dyer were the two that were having that little bit of argy-bargy. Sorry, stole your term.
Yeah, no worries. Down into the turn 12 brake zone. They were going hard at it.
Oh,
everyone
yeah,
very
sure
conscious of the track limits. That's been a hot topic, as well as tire degradation. Track limits here this weekend. You come to this facility, there's so much runoff room, as we see Mancinelli looking a little bit concerned here. His teammate Scarot sits there in the 5th position. Mancinelli is solo. He's had different teammates this year. 2nd in the SprintX points right now. 27 points behind the car that's immediately behind the Ferrari in the field right now, and that's the number 8, Michael Cooper and Jordan Taylor.
I'm wondering why he was looking so concerned. We're obviously having a look at the car, but it doesn't look like any of that debris may have come off of that car, at least from the shots we're seeing at this stage. But obviously a team that's right in the thick of things, and literally there are 2 different championships everybody's paying attention to here. 3 during the course of the season. There's the regular sprint championship, there's the SprintX championship, which is being completed here this weekend, and then there's the overall combined, they call it, and it's really just the champion there. You don't get a 2nd or 3rd. Boy, that is some serious debris down there. It's got
one of the body panels is kind of come astray there, but want to get it cleaned up so that we don't cut down a tire here with someone running over it.
Yeah, they were seriously looking at over the wall at that car, and they said, no, we think we're good. But the color of the panels that were on that debris just don't match that Ferrari.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the panel was upside down as well, so that could be more of a carbon look that we're not quite catching there.
Here's a look at that beautiful TR3 Racing. I'll tell you, they have jumped into this championship and just been spectacular, coming out of Ferrari Challenge competition, and a young driver that really nobody had heard about, and a team that respected in Ferrari Challenge competition, but pretty much unknown on the pro level. Not anymore.
No, I mean, they surprised us at St. Pete at the opening round of the championship, and they've continued to put in very impressive results. Mancinelli's been, kind of on the side of getting the other drivers' attention over the course of the year, but he's certainly calmed it down, and he's done some great performances. And they obviously had that huge win at Utah in the last round of the championship in the SprintX competition. Came out just a little bit shy. Scarot had that quick spin, which allowed Mark Wilkins to nip in for a win for Acura on day 1 at Utah, and but they responded on day 2 by executing perfectly.
That's got to be a somewhat frightening prospect. The speed of Daniel Mancinelli, in that he's reined in the a little bit out of control nature of stuff. He could be an awfully potent driver from here on out, I think.
Yeah, and the team's done a really nice job. I mean, they roll off. I think the Ferrari has good BOP, balance of performance, so it seems to be strong at the majority of the circuits that we visit, so it doesn't seem to have any weak points. But the team has just really stepped up, and I mean, it's a big jump from what they'd run previously. So for them to be competing at this level in this championship so consistently is what's impressed me. They don't seem to have a lot of off weekends.
And we are going to green this time by Bergmeister in the 58. Wright Motorsports Porsche leads Bleekemolen in the 54 Black Swan Mercedes. The number 3 of Ricky Taylor sits in 3rd. 4th is Ryan Dial. That is in the Mercedes. Taylor, of course, in the Cadillac. Then the 31 is Scarot in the Ferrari. And the 8 of Jordan Taylor in the number 8, the blue Cadillac. And the 75 Nissan of Ricardo Sanchez. And then the number 4 of Pumpelly in 8. That's the first of the 2 Audis from Magnus. Then Marco Seefried in the 44 9th. And then rounding out the top 10 cal, the 43 Acura of Tom Dyer.
Yeah, and looking at the McLaren of Alvaro Parent and his teammate Barnicoat, Ben's really not made much progress. He still sits in the 14th spot, which is where he started on the grid. So I'm sure they were hoping for a big first lap here prior to the caution.
Just to keep you updated, in the Am category, Enrique Cisneros in the 30 Momo Ferrari leads that one over David Ostella in the number 23. That is the M1 GT Audi.
wonder if that green body panel comes from Vincent Abril. He's really dropped down the order. Obviously, there's a lot of green on that Bentley, so maybe he had some argy-bargy coming to the green.
That's a very good point.
Intended.
Yeah. All right, here we go through turn 19, getting ready into the VP Racing Fuels acceleration zone. Bergmeister setting up, leading this field as they head out of the V, and he goes right at the apex. You're allowed to do it. He did it to perfection, immediately gets 3-4 car lengths.
He does. That's where the experience shows. Just Jörg Bergmeister timed that perfectly. That means he does not have to defend as he climbs the hill. You see Ricky Taylor having a look down the inside of Bleekemolen. Let's just see if that Porsche can again just generate the tire temp a little bit quicker and gab himself from the rest of the field.
Boy, it sure looks like it. He was very aggressive, doing a lot of scrub. It's not just temping the tires, it's making sure they're clean as well. This track tends to be fairly abrasive on tires, and he is just magic at that. Look at the attack here now in that number 2 De Vilbius Mercedes. Is Dial hounding him.
Yeah, Ricky Taylor just watched a little bit wide of the apex there for a moment, so he's got the pressure on from behind. These two guys are used to fighting each other in a different championship, of course, in prototype competition.
And that number 2 Mercedes, we see it for years now with De Vilbius and MK. They brought on a local Dallas-based company, Service King Collision, helping them here this weekend. And great to have a locally based, Texas-based company on it here. Boy, a good run out of that turn 11 by Skiro in the Ferrari.
And look at Ricky Taylor. He's got a run on Bleekemolen. I think Bleekemolen's going to have to defend as he gets to the brake zone for turn 12. He does so. Ricky flicks to the outside. Skiro is using a lot of the road there as Jordan Taylor now goes on the attack in the blue Cadillac, a couple of positions behind his brother.
I thought Jordan might try and park it around the outside.
Tried to surprise him there. Ricky Taylor
did.
flicks to the inside. Another surprise move, but Jerome was up to the task there in terms of defending.
2 Cadillacs are looking racing in the early going here, because Taylor almost made an outside move on Skiro in the blue Cadillac.
And again, you got to temper that enthusiasm, particularly for Jordan Taylor. Don't throw it all away. Remember, you don't score any points till you get the 25%, the 50% mark in these races.
Yeah, I wonder if the concern is that he's seeing Bergmeister just check out at the front now. It was almost half a second at the green flag on this restart, and he's opened up a huge margin here. Let's see what it is officially at the line. 1.7 seconds that he was opened up here since the green flag dropped. Right now, he's in a different league.
Well, in clear traffic, he ran a 2:07.8. Everyone else is in the 9s and 10s. So that's the advantage that he has there.
Bleekemolen up and over the rise in that Mercedes. And sticking right with this group, running in 7th, is Ricardo Sanchez in that number 75, always evolving A Motorsport Nissan. Then a little bit of a gap back to the 4 of Pumpelly in the Magnus Audi.
Sanchez is really impressive, so I don't believe he's doing any other racing other than these SprintX rounds, Greg, so he's a little bit rusty when he comes into this weekend. Obviously a gamer, obviously uses his sim to great effect. There wasn't a sim he could use at Utah. I spoke to the team this morning. They said didn't matter. First lap out, first flying lap, he was matching the times of Frankie Montecalvo, so they are super impressed with this young man.
Yeah, GT Academy winner, and it's amazing the times we've seen those guys be able to go on and just make that transition seamlessly to great effect, starting with Ordonez and going right on up to Jan Martinborough. I mean, it's Heitkotter who's won in this category.
Yeah, I would never believe it, but I think it simply works, Greg.
Yeah, clearly. There's no question. It's somehow they've got that gamed out. Sorry. Sorry.
Dial on the defense a little bit there. Skiro was giving a little bit of a run on that back straightaway there. Jordan Taylor just sitting there, hounding the Ferrari, looking for an opportunity. He realized that they are the closest competitor to them in the SprintX Championship. There's a double-edged sword for Michael Cooper, Jordan's teammate, because he's in the thick of this overall championship as well, sandwiched between Pat Long and Alvaro Perez. So he can't afford for Long and Bergmeister and those guys to gain big points here, because it all counts towards the overall championship.
Big picture. Got to keep that eye. And I think it's an interesting dynamic, like you talked about. If you were just worried about that SprintX Championship with the margin they have, you could just kind of coast a little bit. But that's not the jewel that they want, is it?
No. I mean, he could just sit there and watch the Ferrari and just think he's the nearest competitor. Everyone else is really out of range. Just keep our eyeballs on him. But they can't afford to suddenly drop 10 points, because suddenly it's going to put Michael Cooper in a big hole as we head to Sonoma for the final couple of rounds of the overall championship. Ooh, big lock up there by
huge
someone.
lock up, yeah. You know, when you see that in these cars, you wonder if there's some sort of an ABS issue that's cropping up. Meanwhile, James Safronis there in that beautiful blue and white Global Motorsports Group Porsche is our Optima best standing start winner, or best start winner.
I believe it's Jaminet who should have started, Greg, I think.
Yep, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, he should be behind the wheel of that car.
And he was absolutely flying in practice this morning, laid down a lap this morning, got everyone's attention. Let's not forget, he sat on the IMSA pole here at Coda earlier in this season. He just loves this track and is super quick, especially through the S's. Talking to Daniel Nord, who co-drove with him back earlier in the season, he just said he's a monster through the S's.
Yeah, he's a mega talent, no question about it. And yeah, it's a good point. He set some awfully quick times earlier. And the way that this format works, it's always the pro that starts the second race. So that would have made sense that it would be Jaminet behind the wheel. And therefore, not a surprise at all either that he got that Optima Best Start award. He is that caliber. Boy, talk about caliber. That's Pat Long watching his remark. I think I said it at Utah that when Pat came out of the pits after Yor got out of the car, I said there is a simply exceptional driver who's just taken over from a simply exceptional driver. I mean, this pairing is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's stellar. Obviously a great fit. And that's what you want. We talk about the SprintX format. So many of the driver pairings had to learn each other, learn how they like the race car. Could they adapt to the same setup? Jorg and Pat, they got so much history together. That was a given. They know what they had to give and take on. But right now, I think Pat Long is looking at these lap times. And on that last lap, Bleekemolen suddenly was within 1/10 of a second of Bergmeister. So you got to wonder, we talk about tire degradation.
Yep.
Is the setup going to work for the long run here with this Wright Motorsports Porsche?
And you may have been spot on about Ben Barnicoat and that Bentley perhaps having some of that damage here. We're getting reports that it might well be coming into the pits. And it is, excuse me, I'm talking about the McLaren, of course. Boy, I got that one wrong. Sorry, that is Barnicoat in. This is the car that Alvaro Parent is in a run for the overall combined championship, perhaps, into the pits. Totally unscheduled, Cal.
Yeah, this is not what Alvaro wanted to be seeing here today.
Man.
They had deep hole to dig their way out of, and obviously technical issues with Ben's car. Jeff?
It comes down to pit lane. It looks like there was damage. I saw the incident in turn one sitting down here on pit lane. I believe they punctured one of the radiators here in the right front. You can see the water dripping out. Devastating for this championship, both in the overall as well as the SprintX.
This is just crushing, Cal.
Yeah, it looks more like an oil line, possibly adrift there. It looked like some black liquid there dripping on pit lane, but this is devastating to their overall championship position. Basically, you'll score 0, Greg, which is huge.
Yeah.
This is just devastating to their season-long campaign.
That's true. That's haven't hit the 50% mark. And they were running, well, they just sent him back out. So they've looked at it. I wonder if they're just saying, well, we've got to try and get something out of this.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, keep driving it till it grinds to a halt if necessary. Do whatever you can.
Wow.
But that then creates a lot of work to get ready for tomorrow. We've got qualifying tomorrow to set up the rest of this weekend. So got to think about these things. Think about the big picture as well.
All right, now the team, we get a report from Race Control, has changed their mind and requested permission to go behind the wall. So
that makes more sense.
Yeah, it sure does. Meanwhile, Bergmeister out front got that margin up to that 1.7, 1.8, and has managed it beautifully since then. It's never dropped really below 1.5. Sits at 1.6 right now. And do keep in mind that he is leading Bleekemolen, who leads in the Pro-Am category. He'll be turning over to Tim Pappas. And they have a 30-second longer delta they have to spend in pit lane. Second in Pro-Am right now is the 75 Nissan of Sanchez, 7th overall at this stage. Third is Jaminet in the number 14 Porsche he shares with Safronis.
That's huge. He's got around Halen because
that's big.
James Safronis is not that far behind both Michael Shine and Jan Halen in the Pro-Am category. So this is huge to have Mathieu Jaminet jamming.
Yeah. But I tell you what, those guys have put on the number 14. The number 14, as you talked about, and the 16 of Shine and Halen have put on some unbelievable racing this year. Nose-to-tail stuff for entire races. We're getting a report here. The 77 there, that is the Calvert Dynamics Global Motorsports Group Porsche. Preston Calvert and Alec Udell, who started the race. And apparently they're being discussed right now that there may have been a pass under yellow, and that they're bringing him in for a drive-through. Marco Seifried deep to the inside.
Yeah, I think it's better of it. Alex probably pretty fired up now, probably trying to deal over the radio with this penalty situation. I believe that he did make a pass under full course yellow. And this is one of the race winners from Utah.
Well, we saw a crew having some body work in hand here a little bit earlier in one of our shots. And apparently we're getting a report now this car may be officially retired. And you can see the look there. Mark Wilkins, the drivers along with Peter Cox, just see him look down in absolute frustration at this stage. And we're getting a report now for the 77 portion that you get, I think it's 3 laps, and then you quit getting scored, and they've informed the team that you're on that last lap opportunity here. So they've got a couple of fifths in the Pro-Am class, that pairing, and of course Udell in Mid-Ohio got his first ever podium as an outright pro. So they're a team on form here, but this doesn't help, obviously.
Okay, Bleeker Mullen just laid down fastest race lap at a 207.24. That compares with Bergmeister's best at a 207.37. So he's inching literally up on him.
Well, and I just said that Bergmeister had been controlling things beautifully at that 1.5 to 1.8 second margin. And as I say that, Bleeker Mullen just ups the ante here. Here's the number 3, the red, the Velocity Red Cadillac of Ricky Taylor. We're turning over to Johnny O. There's Ryan Dial.
Jordan Taylor has faded back a little bit. Be interested to know if he's actually just managing his tires at this stage of the game. Took the fight to the Ferrari, realized that he wasn't able to do anything. And the other thing is, Greg, when you get close proximity, we've talked about it all season long with these GT3 cars, you get a lot of aero wash, and you can really aggravate the front tires in terms of getting a big understeer, and just need to keep driving it on there and literally grind those fronts off. So maybe he's just taking a breather here, trying to get some clean air and make sure that he can turn it over to Michael Cooper with some good tires left underneath him.
Well, I think that's one of the nice things is, again, we see Scudeau get out of 11 very well, but when you get down near the end of the straight here, and sometimes he fades a little bit. Not this time. He is tucked right behind, pops to the inside of Ryan Dial. Now it's just a matter of who can out deep the other on the brake. Big wiggle by Scudeau, but what a control at the exit, Cal.
Yeah, he did, because he didn't abuse the track limits on the exit there, which is going to be the key. You can dive down the inside with these ABS brakes, but he managed to do that, get it all slowed down, and keep the position. Ryan was certainly up to it. He was really defensive there in his line down there, but Scudeau just charged in there and takes away the position.
Yeah, beautiful save, and as you said, making sure he didn't get into a track limits violation, because then that just not only makes that pass go away, you have to give it back, and you may have to even do a drive-through. So beautiful job there.
And he's another one of these new drivers to the championship. Had just kind of find his feet, so to speak, man. Had a couple of little errors, got involved, particularly up at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. We talk about the 9 car having a bad day today. They had a bad first part of the CTMP weekend when Scudeau turned around Barnacourt, I think it was, early in the going there.
Well, and speaking of the number 9 car, we've got more information coming from pit lane, Jeff.
It was absolutely a radiator on Ben Barnacourt. They have, the team is here. They're trying to get to halfway distance. Spoke with Darren Law, said points matter so much. Ben is still behind the wheel. He'll try to get out here before the pit delta window, put Brent in the car, get that 50% to try to get as many points as they can. Crew working hard down here.
This is a team that has so much endurance experience. If anyone can get this task done in the shortest amount of time, there's Tommy Sadler and the boys for K-Pac's Flying Lizard group there.
And I'll tell you, this is one of those moments when you realize, I say it so often, that the crews are the unsung heroes of the sport. Not only trying to do a change that fast, but you know that is one hot component they're working on, and they just dive in. That's their moment to really contribute here at the racetrack. They contribute certainly at the shop and all season long, but boy, that's when they earn it. Our lead duo right now, Bergmeister and Bleeker Mullen. Last time by, that margin was 0.8, but they are about 1.8 seconds from Bleeker Mullen back to Taylor. They've made a little bit of a break here. And the one thing I was going to say, you talked about Jordan Taylor backing off maybe a little bit. When you do get on these Pirellis a little bit, the nice thing about these Pirelli P0s is if you back off, they will come back a little bit.
Yeah, they will. They will recover a little bit. But behind this group, Mathieu Jaminet is really putting in a tremendous performance. He's fought his way all the way up to 7th overall, 2nd in class behind Bleekemolen, obviously, who's running 2nd overall and 1st in the Pro-Am division. But he is absolutely flying, and I wouldn't put it past him, Greg, to get on the tail end of this group before he turns it over to James Safronis.
I think that's entirely possible. We're getting word, by the way, next time by they will see that pit open board, and every driver has to see that before they can pit, so that will be coming out here. But yeah, you make a good point. Remember, this is where Jaminet made his first U.S. appearance in the Michelin Super, the Porsche Super Cup, and holy cow, he just smoked the field in both of the races that day, and people went, this guy's for real.
Yeah, he's found a different approach to the S's in particular, and he loves this racetrack. He just really attacks, and Daniel Morad said, whatever I tried, I couldn't get within 2 to 3 tenths of him through that sector, which is huge for a professional driver to be talking about that discrepancy. But he said he's simply amazing here, and James Safronis has an awesome teammate this weekend.
Well, you got to bring all the guns to a shootout in Texas, don't you?
This is where he's attacking right through there. You can see the commitment.
He just flows speed, doesn't he? And not even close to any kind of a track limit scenario. So he gets that speed and does it crisply clean.
Yep. His last lap was, he just ran a 2:06.9, Greg. Fastest lap of the race, 3/10 quicker than Bleekemolen. So he is now only 2.7 seconds behind Jordan Taylor.
Here's a look at Enrique Cisneros in the number 30 Momo Ferrari. That's the 458. And he is your leader in the Am category, running with Peter Ludwig this weekend. Right behind him is that number 23 M1 GT Audi, having a solid run as well. And pits are open. And the board will go up this time. Pits will open here in, what, a little over 2 minutes. Here's your leader in the GT Cup category in SprintX competition, the number 55. That is the Dream Racing Lamborghini Super Trofeo platform. In the hands right now of the pro, Alessandro Brazan.
The real key with the strategy, typically, if you got your pro in right now, you're going to keep him out as long as you can, so you can get the most effective time delta over the rest of the competition. So expect Jaminet to stay out there for pretty much the whole 35-minute window that he has to work with, and then James will take over. Not that James is slow, but certainly no one's going to run at the pace of Jaminet this weekend, it looks like. Right,
and that's part of the compromise of endurance multiple driver, is that you got to swallow your ego every once in a while, and at this track certainly Jaminet is going to be the guy, and anybody will do that. You let your strong driver stay in. Now the question is that when somebody up front, the first one to blink, so to speak, and they pit, that kind of puts the people that are racing around them into a bit of a pickle, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, do you follow suit? Do you roll the dice a little bit? We certainly saw Michael Cooper and Jordan Taylor roll the dice at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, and that worked out very well for them.
But if it gets caught the wrong way, the whole thing changes here. Great battle. Once again, as the 31, Esquiro is just glued now to the back of the number 3 of Ricky Taylor, the red Cadillac, not too far adrift. Number 2 of Dial in the Mercedes.
Talking about it, Jaminet is coming. He has dropped nearly a second out of that gap to Jordan Taylor. There you see, you can smell him now. Shortly he'll be picking up a draft effect from that group of gaggle of cars in front of him.
Down this long straightaway here. Build a tremendous amount of speed. Then a very tricky brake zone into turn 12. Leads into what they call the stadium section here at Circuit of the Americas.
Looking at the trap speeds, Ricky Taylor and Jaminet, Jordan Taylor in the 163 to 164 range. Everyone else running 159, 160. So it's quite a big time delta, speed delta there. Go through that speed trap between 11 and 12.
It's interesting. I think the 77 of Udell has made his stop, but there's some speculation that the 9 car had actually passed them and then gave it back, and they then spotted Udell making the move. Is that the 31 making the move in? It is.
Making the move early.
Yeah, right at the front end of the pit window here.
Yeah. The leaders would have had the opportunity to pit within that 25 to 35 minute window. They'd like not to, but certainly one of the front runners and one of the front runners in the SprintX Championship. We talked about it, you two. They cut it really close. Jeff is waiting for them.
Down into pit lane they go, and the clock starts.
Well, Scarrow comes down, brings the TR3 Ferrari on. Daniel Mancinelli coming into the paddock. They pitted early simply because Scarrow just doesn't like this place. For some reason, he's not acclimated to Circuit of the Americas yet, trying to get up to speed here. So the strategy is to put Mancinelli in, and they got 3 stopwatches here timing this. This team has been perfect all season long on the 60-second delta.
That's exactly what we were talking about, Cal. You swallow your pride, and if you're just not quite on pace, you deal with it accordingly. Up in front, the number 90, that is one of our GT Cup cars in the Am category, the 90 of Toussaint and Friedman. And Mancinelli out, how'd he do?
62.1, so not as close as they cut it at Utah, but nonetheless pretty good. I think anything 61, 62 is very, very acceptable. A lot of teams are using different systems now. I spoke to the Capex team. They now actually have a data system that is built into the car. It kind of tells them when to release the car, and then will give you a green or a red in terms of how you're doing on that run to pit exit, so the driver can actually adjust. So I think you're going to see some very close times here in terms of that pit lane delta being executed this weekend.
That tells you how good you've been, where a 62-second stop in a 60 window, you're upset about that. And I think this might play well here because, you know, he was, I think at times, the 31, Scarrow, even though he may not like this track, he was sometimes I think being held up just a little bit, and he came out, and now Mancinelli has absolutely clear track, and in now is Bergmeister. Long will be waiting in that Wright Motorsport Porsche consulting machine. Makes its way down pit lane, and this is big in terms of championships. Getting this stop done. Everything they do from now on this weekend is huge.
Oh, it's huge. Pat Long leads overall from Michael Cooper. And the next closest pursuer was obviously Brent, who's having a really bad day. So Pat Long's day has gone well so far. Let's see if he can bring it home.
And as this car stops, Cooper's in. Jeff?
Correct, you are there, Greg. Michael Cooper just now passing Jörg Bergmeister down here on pit lane. So the two teams here that are in that SprintX Championship pitting at the identical same time. You see Pat Long hopping in. He has a big seat insert due to the height difference of Bergmeister and Long. But talk about the Porsche pairing here. I can't think of a different Porsche pairing with Bergmeister and Long that in all of Porsche Motorsports, how great these two guys are.
Oh, it's truly one of the legendary pairings as well, and boy, did they nail that one. Long out and out in anger and gets right back in front of that blue number 8. Cooper now exits as well.
62-0, 62 flat for the 58 car.
Nice. 68.
A little bit quicker,
wow.
A little bit tighter on the pit lane delta than the Ferrari.
Ooh, and you can see right there the Ferrari right in third coming up, and Cooper is going to have to be in serious defense mode here.
Yeah, he's not in a rhythm yet, whereas Mancinelli, and he clears him. Mancinelli gets through. He pants when he had to. That is huge. It's hard for the driver just jumping in, even though he's just come off practice laps this afternoon, to just be immediately as effective as someone who's got a lap or two under their belt.
Yeah, exactly.
See the replay there, just coming off of turn 1.
Now we'll see once Cooper gets into a rhythm. I mean, there's no question about his ability here. And he leads the number 8 over that 31 in the SprintX points. Got a fairly sizable margin there, but as we talked about, you know, if you didn't have that overall to worry about, you'd just sit behind that 31 probably, and that'd be good. Can't do it.
He can't. He's going to push hard. I mean, the second part of the focus really is on Pat Long, there, who's now leading, and that's the driver that he's really got to fight and try and chase down in that overall point standings.
All right, number 2. Mercedes is in. Dial is at Jeff's feet.
Daniel Murad opens the door. The belts are already off for Dial as he climbs out. This is a pretty cool pairing here at CRP Racing with Daniel Murad, the up-and-coming here, with Ryan Dial coming out. It's a perfect pairing. No seat changes on them. They're bucking the belts up. Perfect time. Just behind me, Michael Schein and Jan Halen coming into the pits. Michael Schein coming in here. They're battling for that Pro-Am category, leading the points in that GTA.
They're up against it today. I mean, Halen and Shine have been brilliant, but I'll tell you, Cronus and Jaminet pretty effective too. By the way, in the manufacturer points, as we see the Mercedes drive out, Porsche comes in here with a 3-point lead over McLaren, who also have a 3-point lead over Cadillac, and Ferrari just a little bit farther back. And that is a hugely important championship for the manufacturers, obviously, that are fielding these teams, and it's pretty tight.
It is really tight, and that's obviously on everyone's mind as well in terms of what you're doing for your brand as well. So we see Bleekemolen stay out, Ricky Taylor stayed out. We expected Bleekemolen and Jaminet to just keep hustling those race cars for all they can in these last few minutes before they have to turn it over to their Pro-Am teammate. But certainly within a lap, maybe could squeak a second one, but I would guess within a lap we'll see those guys in as well.
All right, and a nice job by the number 8 Cadillac guys to get that done here and get them out in front of the number 2 Mercedes. Now in the hands of Murad, that's big. But as you said, the question now comes where those that have stayed out, what they've been able to do with some fairly clear track.
Looking at the number 2 pit stop, almost 63 seconds, 62.9. So they gave up about a second to the rest of the field. There is Jaminet now hits pit lane. What a performance. Magic stuff.
Yeah, he has just been spectacular this entire season in whatever he's driven, but certainly since he came here for that F1 race in the Super Cup, he has been magic, Jeff.
Pulls that 911 GT3R right here on pit lane. James Safrana's going to hop in. Right behind us, it's Vincent Abril and Adderley Fong, with Adderley getting ready to get into the car. Abril doing a great job in that Bentley with early damage. The crew's going to start looking at all that damage on the Bentley. But fasten these belts in this Porsche and GMG. The title championship is at stake.
Yeah, and fasten those belts is huge. One of the things that is one of the most problematic in these driver changes is when you get a belt trapped somewhere. And it looks like they're struggling a little bit here.
Well, they have a lot of time to work with, Greg. Let's not forget this at 90 seconds, so you don't really need to panic.
I was.
Yeah.
And behind them, in comes Udell turning over to Preston Calvert. Both those cars fielded by Global Motorsports Group.
Preston's pretty excited, pulling double duty again here this weekend. Just loves his driving. Really fun to see the glimmer in his eye when you talk to him about driving this racetrack.
Yeah, and he drives anything and everything. When he's not driving in these pro races, he's driving in SCCA competition, getting ready for the runoff. So he just does it all.
What he pumped this morning, he said, I'm close to breaking the 210 barrier, which, you know, when you see a lot of these pros running 207 and I run this racetrack and be within 2 to 3 seconds, that is a great achievement for someone who really effectively is a businessman and does this as a hobby.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a passion, no question, but as you said, it is a hobby. There's the number 16 in the hands of Michael Shine. We've seen him at certain tracks. I remember was it last year, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. He was running laps that were within a second to Pat Long, talking about getting close to an immense talent. It's going to be fun to see just how this plays out here. Shine, the team car to Pat Long. There comes Bleekemolen finally making the move.
Everyone cutting it close. Bleekemolen's in, Ricky Taylor's in.
He'll be turning over to Tim Pappas.
Curious to see where that number 3 leaps into the fray. Remember, these guys that we're looking at right now, the 54 car, this will be a 90-second pit lane delta for the 3 car. It'll be a 60-second. Can he jump in the mix there? Can he come out next to the other Cadillac? That'll be Johnny O going to be taking over. Right there you see it, Mr. 4-time Pirelli World Challenge champion. Taking in, and he hates sharing this race car.
He's, you know, I mean, and there's an irony there, isn't it? After all those years with Le Mans wins and championships, sharing a car all those years. But I think once he got into this type of racing, when it was sprint racing, he went, this is my baby.
Yeah, this is my baby, and I want to share it.
And it was kind of funny, wasn't it? The early races of the SprintX series, when you'd see, you know, Johnny would be in pit lane and calm, relaxed, and everything. Michael Cooper's never shared a car and done that in his life. You'd see him just pacing. Oh, this is going to be interesting. Well, that was a great stop.
It was. Let's not forget that Ricky Taylor had that car running towards the sharper end of the field, and Michael on in a rhythm here. Didn't say harder tires, and basically they all stay on the same tires, but even so, sweeps by his teammate. And you'd have to wonder at the end of the day, the focus has got to be on Michael Cooper at this stage of the game. Hard for a guy like Johnny O, 4 consecutive championships, nearly got 5. to give up track position to his teammate, but we know in one of the recent rounds, I think it was Mid-Ohio, where he said, I had a faster car, but we had to just let Michael grab the big points that day.
Well, I think if that had been, I don't know, Pat Long coming up behind him, he may have been a little bit more stout in his defense going through turn 1 there, and he just let
Morat's got to run. Flicks down to the inside. Leaves it a little bit too late. Saw him get the charge on him. I thought he was going to sort of like bleed out and blend down to the inside. Decided to do the big leap, but Johnny O was up for that one. And now you see those Cadillacs. Let's see how they stack up down the straightaway.
It was a nice try, but I'm not sure how you can surprise a Johnny O'Connor.
No, I think he was going to be up for that.
He's seen about everything, whether out the windshield or in his mirrors over the years.
Headlights blazing here.
Hey, good news. Just getting word from race control. The number 9 of Barnicoat and the McLaren back on track.
It's going to be key. Need to get that time on the board. And that will give them last place points versus 0.
Yeah, and that's a big difference. All right,
keep fighting. Anything can happen. Adversity can strike on any competitors with still 4 rounds to go after today in terms of the overall. 2 more rounds here and 2 more at Sonoma.
Traffic starting to come into play here. We saw that one group that we've been following working their way around the 017, the K-Sit Porsche in the GTS category of Adam Merzon and Trent Hinman, and also see the number 90 of Tucson Friedman in the mix here. So Long right now leads. Long leads by just almost, well, 0.8 of a second over Mancinelli, then Cooper, then O'Connell and Murad. That's your top 5. The 54, Pappas still leads in the Pro-Am category. Montecalvo, Jaminet and Montecalvo are running 2nd and 3rd in that. And of course now that is Safronis, who has turned over to Jaminet. Interesting to see how far behind him Montecalvo is now. You see the 90 of Corey Friedman now behind the wheel. There's your leader.
It's about 7 seconds that Safronis has on Montecalvo, so that should be manageable.
It's going to be interesting here now to see if Safronis can run down Pappas at this stage, because Shine sits in 4th after their stop.
Not that far behind, I don't think, Greg. I mean, he's got a few cars between he and Tim Pappas, but I'm just trying to add up the delta here. 10 seconds, so that's a significant chunk, and Tim seems to be pretty comfortable. He runs really wide there, just as I say that, through turn 11.
I saw that Acura in the mirrors, I think, and just missed his turn in a little bit, and that 43 Eversley went for the move and then just tucked right back in again. And now pops out, heading down into 12.
So Sellers there. He and Michael Lewis having a pretty strong run from the back of the grid. Because it was a different lineup, Sellers ran with Johnny Kane in the early round. Oh, that was close. Just getting back to that. Sellers had to move to the back of the grid because he ran with Johnny Kane at the Canadian Tire Motorsports. Now he tucks it down to the inside. Nice move there. Because it was a change of lineup.
Right.
With Michael Lewis now joining him for these remaining SprintX rounds, he had to move to the back of the grid, as did a couple of other cars.
Yeah, good charge by Sellers. And Lewis, obviously.
Sellers
nice
said
to
he
see
struggled
Lewis
with
stay in this championship. Sorry
it is. It's great to see Michael back. He's a real talent.
Yep.
Good fit there at K-Pex. They like him a lot. One of the nicest guys you'll meet in pit lane. Just so nice. Someone's afternoon, he was sweating, just did a stint. He came up to me and asked me if I would like a drink. I should be asking you.
Exactly. But he is just that nice a guy. And, you know, I just love it because you see those guys that are so kind and gentle and everything, and you think there's no way you're going to be fast in a race car. But he snaps that visor shut. And, I mean, I remember here a few years ago calling a GT3 Cup race that he, Colin Thompson, and I'm trying to remember who the third driver, Sloan Urie, I think, night race. And it was a 45-minute race, and for 40 minutes, those guys were swapping the lead for the entirety in darkness here. Michael Lewis can get it done.
He can. I'll tell you what's heating up is this battle at the front. Mancinelli has got his sights on another victory. I think he'd like to taking that win at Utah and wants to follow up here with another one. Pat Long will not be wanting to give up critical points at this stage of the game. We talked about it, Greg. You know, who was using their tires the hardest in the early stint? We saw Bergmeister leap out. See Pat Long there a little bit wide of apex. I think he's struggling for the balance right now in that Ride Motorsports Porsche. So he may not be able to defend from Mancinelli if Mancinelli can get to him.
Mancinelli sits fourth in that overall combined championship, but a pretty large chunk of points adrift here.
So he's going to make a big bunch of them up on Brent, who's third. Yeah. But certainly you would think that Long and Cooper would be out of reach. But lots of racing still to go before we pull the curtain down on this championship season, Greg.
Well, look what happened to the number 9. You know, problems that, you know, just a little thing like that happens. And can happen to Mancinelli sits second in the SprintX championship points behind Michael Cooper and Jordan Taylor. So he understands the big picture here, and he's going to go for every conceivable point. And of course, as you said, I think he's grown accustomed to winning. He likes it. And you can't give up in this sport because there's so many variables. And one goes wrong at the right time for you and the wrong time for the competitor.
You have to keep grinding away, even on a bad day when you think it's all lost. You never know. A precious point or two can really come back to help you out at the end of the day.
Well, considering the GT Championship came down to the last half of the last lap of the season last year, you just can't give it up ever. Boy, Mancinelli is closing to it. It was 7/10 last time by, and it's a lot less than that now.
Yeah, but Pat has so much experience. He'll be reading these tires, knowing what he can give and take on them in terms of maintaining the grip coming into these corners, not making that critical error, and just handing the lead in the position to Mancinelli.
That margin almost 7 seconds now back to Cooper and the number 8. Beautiful vector blue Cadillac.
Oh, it's got a nice little run going here. Showing some good pace in the later stages.
Well, he's been impressive this year.
He really has.
We saw him do at VIR.
Declared Johnny O just taken off.
Yeah. Johnny O, as you said, in 5th. 6th is Caffer, the number 4 Audi. Great to see that. They were concerned here because of 2 things. One, long straights just don't suit that car. It's one of the draggier cars because it makes great downforce. But then you get a lot of heat when the air thins out and you lose some of the effectiveness of your downforce. And they said we might be, you know, fighting a double whammy here, and they put together a good run. And Adderley Fong is, along with Brilla, brought that Bentley up into 7th right now. So
it's a good run for those guys, because they'd sort of like dropped back quite a bit after what we assume was some argy-bargy there at the start with into the grill.
Yeah, the damage on the car. Fong having an absolute breakout weekend at Road America earlier in the season with a win and 2 poles. So certainly good speed there. Eversley in the Acura up into 8th. 9th is Sellers, as you said, and then now 10th is Pappas. And what's the margin back to
7 seconds? So it's come down about 3 seconds now over what Pappas started this stint off. So he's still got enough there. If he doesn't make any critical errors, he's probably got enough margin there to bring it home. But 15 minutes to go, still a long way.
And another 7 seconds from Sofronis back to Shine, and that's your big points implication there. But Monte Calvo right now is only a couple of seconds off of Shine.
It's a great battle for the Pro division today.
Well, look at this.
Yeah, this is huge in the championship as well.
Showing that nose.
Yeah, and that pushes Cooper wide. Cooper was distracted there and missed it a little bit.
Now
I don't think he was sure what Morad was going to do.
Yeah, I think you're right.
You know, I don't want. And again, you got to be thinking: is he thinking big picture up there in his head? You know what I mean? When he saw he suddenly made the move to the inside.
Yep.
Don't block him. Don't shut the door.
Now he takes a little bit of a slightly defensive posture down into turn 12, just sort of a car length off of the normal line.
Conversely, if we think about the psyche of the following driver, he can maybe take advantage. Here's another look at it. Sort of like feints to the inside, and Michael just takes it in super deep. I'm not sure if he was into the ABS there and just drove it straight on a little bit.
And Dial and Murad are sitting 3rd in the SprintX championship right now, just 5 points off of Mancinelli in the Ferrari. But again, a bunch back of Cooper. So as you said, if he can sneak through here,
Morad's up on the wheel today. You can
Isn't
see
he?
he's got a lot of confidence in this car right now. He's digging deep, looking super racy.
One of the things that we've seen from this Mercedes, and obviously with BOP, things tend to kind of up and down a little bit, but the car seems to be able to use curbs and never lose its platform.
Right.
It's just remarkably compliant, if you will.
Well, it's
Still
got
keeps
everything, Greg.
Yeah,
it
does.
struggles a little bit with the downforce that it creates in terms of straightaway speed, maybe compared to a couple of the other marques, but everything else it does well.
Yeah.
It's a mega car. It's been so successful around the globe.
That's a good
GT
point.
championships.
Once it gets into something quick where that arrow kicks in, it's
Yeah.
pretty impressive, yeah. Running out of time, though. Down to 13.5 minutes.
He's able to carve the corners, though.
Yeah, he
Cooper's
sure is.
hanging on here a little bit. And again, that tire deck, looking at some of the lap times now, they're definitely dropped off about a second or a second and a half over what we saw earlier in the race with their teammates.
Remember, this is essentially round 4 of the championship, the
Cooper.
makeup race.
He defends. Morad makes a late move, gets down to the
what
inside.
now can he make it? He does.
Oh, Cooper tries to square it off, and now it's going to be a drag race. Morad immediately goes into defense, which he's entitled to do, as long as he makes that move first. Cooper says, okay, well, you may think you're defensive, but look at this.
Look at this.
He's off the road there, trying to make the move back. So suddenly the racer's instinct kicked in and forgot about the big picture of the championship. Morad fights him hard all the way down to the apex. Great racing here. Gets forced out wide a little bit. I think he'll be okay with the track limits. I think he was forced over there.
I think so, too.
Johnny O is closing in on these two as these two duke it out.
Yeah, he's definitely. And look at that. Morad knew Cooper was going to try
yeah.
and slice the inside, just parked it over there.
He was up for that. Game of chess. You want to be one move ahead, at least.
Yep. Well, and that's one of the magic things is you watch the really, really good drivers, and Morad just exhibited there, exiting a turn to have that instinct, that blind instinct to be able to put the car right where that guy wants to go.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, Greg. Just the racer's mentality kicked in. You can feel, even if you can't see the car, you can feel them around you. You can feel them on your fender.
And I think in your mind, don't you, you also go, what would I do? I'd square up and come over here, so that's where I'm going to go.
Yeah, you know where you've compromised your speed, which would give the advantage to the guy behind you, and you've got to be thinking about their mentality and what they'd be doing, as you just said.
Right now we'll see. Does he? And he's already opened it up a little bit here.
Yeah, he really flies through that like carousel type corner. I think that's why he's trying to make the move early in the lap, and then through those last handful of corners before we finish the lap, then gap him like he's done and take the pressure off.
Tell you, the last couple of laps too, Pierre Caffer, the number 4 Magnus Audi, has run some laps half a second quicker than O'Connell and the guys up front. He's got a lot of room in terms of the gap back to him, but he's shown good speed. Just nice to see.
Pappas to Safronis for Pro-Am down to 4 seconds. Shine only a couple of seconds behind Safronis. So even if Safronis thinks, you know what, I'm just going to bring this home ahead of the 16.
There's another look at that great pass. And then
the immediate defense. And then we get down to turn 12 and it continues. And this is where Michael really went for it. Through this next one, Greg, you recognized it.
Yeah,
like
right
pinch
here.
and then another little pinch.
Yeah. And he has been able to stretch that margin just a little bit.
Yeah, Morad looking really good here. This would be a strong podium run for that team. Came out the block so strong. Oh!
The 90 of Corey Friedman.
Up in turn 1. There's a big bump there, Greg. Talking to the teams, they said there's 2 bumps right before you get on the brakes, and then right when you're in the middle of the brake zone. And it's easy to do this, get some lockup.
Well, it looked like he was compressed into that bump, went to the brake, and it released, and that just locked. Yeah. Now he's just got to get back in his rhythm just a little bit. There's a couple of bumps that are for. There's those.
Yeah.
I was talking to Jerome Bleekemolen, and he said right at the exit of that triple apex right-hander, he said right on the line as it starts to fall away. He said there's a big one there.
We've had so much rain and not just talking about the flooding, the horrendous flooding here in Texas this week, Greg, but over the last couple of winters, this circuit in Austin in general has had a tremendous amount of rainfall, and it's just really moved a lot of the dirt. There's a really good grounding underneath the race surface, but beneath that, just the general dirt has really been moved around a lot. When you just drive the public roads, you see it as well.
We're just watching Friedman there. Reason is he's leading in the GT Cup Am category. There is the number 54. Pappas leading in the Pro-Am category. As he rolls onto the throttle of that Mercedes, if we can get that shot to open up a little bit, you're going to see the blue number 14 of Safronis actually lost just a smidge that lap.
3.7.
Yeah, so Pappas found it. There it is.
So it looks like James is generally about 4 to 5 tenths quicker than Pappas, but time is running out. He would love to get maximum points here today.
Absolutely, he would. He's got Shine behind him, which was job number 1. And if he can get somebody in between himself and Shine and steal more points away, that's huge. By the way, just heard from race control that move on they said the pass from number 8, number 2 is under review from race control.
Looked like good racing, but obviously just because it's under review, it's just they want to take another look at it. Doesn't necessarily mean that action will be taken.
Absolutely correct. Just boy, James is. This is one of those moments when you can see it. Look at that bump right there. I mean, there is some significant, which adds some character to the tracks. I mean, a lot of drivers, you know, you think about Sebring and you ask them, so should we put pave? No.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
That's when you know your way through those bumps. It's a great game changer. There's Shine too, so there's your margin.
Yeah.
There's Pappas getting around the. And no action, as you called it, Cal, on the 8 and the 2. So good deal there.
I think they're maybe just looking to see if they want to even throw a warning at either one of those guys. I'm not sure which of the 2 cars they're actually looking at, because they're both racing pretty hard. Probably Morad in terms of the defensive driving in line once he got the position made.
There's Safronis now. He's got right in front of him is the number 55. That is the GT Cup Pro-Am leading Lamborghini, now in the hands of Yuki Hirata from Dream Racing. And Safronis has got to get through him now to get to Pappas. Pappas is doing actually a very nice job now.
He is. He's just got to focus forward and just keep hitting his marks.
7 minutes.
The gap is coming down a little bit each lap. Just keep doing what you're doing. You should have enough margin to bring it home.
Well, it's got to be awfully calming, if you will, to have in your radio Journal Bleekum on.
Yes.
Just here's what you need to do. You got this, you know. All in a Dutch accent, of course.
And big news this week is they announced they're going to be competing at Bathurst next year. Was your own participating with the Black Swan, and
how fun is that?
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
I think it's Calvert Jones, one of the local guys, going to be teaming up with them.
Oh, okay, yep.
David Calvert Jones.
Seen a lot of him and GT Cup competition here stateside over the years. There's the number 4 of Caffer we were talking about. Having a good run here, running at 6, but Adderley Fong has thrown down some laps. His last lap was a half-second quicker than Caffer. This is for 6th. And Adderley is on it here. Great to see in the Bentley.
Yeah, I think he's really come on strong this year. Certainly showed flashes last year, but this year been so much more consistent. Just seems to be more at peace, just in his general demeanor in terms of how he conducts the race weekend is how I read it from the outside anyway, Greg. And certainly we're seeing it in his performances as well.
That's a good point. He's a little less intense is a good way to put it. And you talk to him and you sense he's just really enjoying things. And
well, the pressure's off too. When you look for that first win, when you get that, it's suddenly you feel like I've arrived, I've proved my point, I belong here at this level, I can compete with these guys. And he was simply sensational at Road America.
Just keep you up to date, folks. Last lap long, running a little bit quicker than Mancinelli, and has been able to solidify that margin at 2.6 seconds, and then another 9 back to Murad. So that's where it is right now. So this is getting to be an intriguing battle for 6, and of course keeping an eye on that GT Pro-Am battle between Pappas, Safronis, and Shine. And Tim Pappas doing a nice job there. All right, what do we see for times in this one here? Fong just turned a 2:09.0 to a 2:09.36 for Caffer. Gotta admit, the sound of that V10 in those cars is pretty sweet.
Yeah, it is very sweet. And this is where that car should really excel here through these high downforce corners.
Cadillac boys. having a bit of a go here.
I'd be amazed if Johnny O takes away these precious points from his teammate. He may bum draft him over the line, but he's just going to sit there, and even if he's got a faster car, he'd faded back quite a bit, but it seems like Michael Cooper's really come back to him now after that fight with Morad. I'm not sure if he took too much out of his tires in terms of fighting that Mercedes off, but either way, you'd have to think that the Cadillac management would just say, just hold positions, boys, just bring it home.
Yeah.
Couple of top fives is okay.
Yeah, and 4 minutes to go. You know what? Knowing Johnny, you don't have to tell him that. You know, he's played this game before where he's been the guy who's benefited from a wingman.
But Michael, you're buying dinner.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'll give you points. You give me barbecue here in Texas.
Michael may say, well, Johnny's never bought me dinner in my life, so I expected to pay.
What a great complex of corners here. This triple right. What's so cool about this track? Ooh, what's so cool about this track is how it's patterned and laid out after so many great corners around the world. And Sellers attacking on Eversley, isn't it?
A couple of the Atlanta domicile boys having a go at it here in the late going.
And white flag next time, pass start finish for the 48 Porsche of Long. Well, Jorg doing the job in that first stint, getting the jump out to the front so far, other than through the pit stop exchange. Ooh, Eversley running a bit wide there.
And Mancinelli probably got Pat Long's attention, and he probably is wondering how much more does he have in his bag of tricks, but it kind of plateaued a little bit, and then Pat was able to do his thing and just manage this very nicely.
This is a solid run by that number 6 McLaren. Lewis and Sellers, as you said, coming from the back now and sitting in 9th, looking at an 8th up against this Gus Field.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what they can do in qualifying tomorrow here, because they struggled a lot yesterday. Suddenly, the final practice session today, both of the K-Pax cars are up in the top 5 on fresh rubber. It's hard to read who's showing what in practice. When you get to qualifying, that's the real deal, and we know the track position is so critical.
And is Long, who just made a pass on the 77 of Preston Calvert. The yellow car right there is Mancinelli. That's your margin. And we are looking at the white flag. Pat comes through this time. Boy, this Wright Motorsports team has just been superb.
Well, you know, when you look at the ingredients, everything's there. I mean, they had a full season program versus an abbreviated season together last year with Pat switching teams after a couple of events. And John Wright's one of the savviest engineers in the paddock. Pat Long told Porsche, this is where I want to focus this year and win this title. And when you team him up with guys like Jörg Bergmeister and Mark Lieb, you're going to see John Wright give him the orders. 1 lap to go, Pat.
Final lap. Round 4 of the championship, the makeup race from the rain postponed event at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Light getting low in the sky. This is one of my favorite times of racing. Dusk, the lights come on. Start to see the glow of the rotors just a little bit. You can still see the cars whistling through.
It was interesting to look at Perrin's last lap. We talked about the 9 car getting back out there to get the 50% drive time and score some points. Just laid down a 2:08.5. That compares to mid-9s for the leaders. So maybe Perrin will have something to come back with tomorrow if he's got a quick car.
Well, and that is important because obviously they need that to qualify. This is one of those races where normally in the one of the earlier races in a weekend, the fast lap in the race sets the stage for the next. Not for this, because this is a makeup race. So it's one of those weird moments here where we get this race done and then we qualify for the next one as well.
I think that qualifying session here in the morning, Greg, is so critical to this overall championship picture.
Well, every driver you talk to now says because of that real aero sensitivity on the cars, that qualifying, you're on the sword for every lap in that session, and it's mega important.
But the key is with these tires here, it's your 1 lap. You've got to get it cleared out. As Hooker Alvaro said, you get 1 lap, and the sweet spot's gone.
Sweet spot's gone. It's timely as well. Ooh, that's going to be fun. Well, Pat Long through the stadium and now into 16, 17, into 18. Watch the bump right there. Little bump there as you set up for 19. Tricky enough corner as well. He's got enough of a lead. 3 seconds last time by. Long into the final corner. Wright Motorsports, Pat Long, Jörg Bergmeister, and Porsche win at Circuit of the Americas. There's the celebration on the pit wall. Jörg just remarkable, as you would expect, in his opening stint, getting that beautiful pass right up through turn 1 into the lead. And they controlled the race from that point on. Mancinelli into second, and Murad a fighting third. Great to see that here. Oh, and look at this in the Pro-Am. 14, Safronis has gone around Pappas, and there's Shine. It's that close, Cal.
Wow, that is huge. What a last lap here for James Safronis. Just had enough time on the board to catch Tim Pappas make the move. The key now is, can Pappas hang on to that second position and gap Safronis to Shine? One extra position that will really tighten things up here tonight.
And Shine right now.
Look at the track limits there. He was outside. He was out of bounds.
And Shine right now knows, I've got to get Pappas here if he possibly can. All right, through the last turn, Safronis onto the front straight. Porsche wins in Pro-Am as well, with the Mercedes in second from Black Swan. In third, the Wright Motorsport Porsche, covered by the proverbial blanket. Top 3, the podium in Pro-Am. Absolutely great stuff there. And apparently, the number 54, Pappas, just ran a little wide. Here's a look at it, Cal. Oh, boy.
Well, you wonder, he kind of, whether he was under pressure or got a little nerve. Either way.
Was that nerve or nerf?
Yeah, struck a nerve with the nerf. Possibly. We didn't see any contact, but the way that Pappas just drove by Safronis like he wasn't happy, he was either mad at himself or mad at James. I'm not sure on this in-lap.
That's a very good point. In the Am category in our GT ranks, the number 30, Momo Ferrari, a points leader, Enrique Cisneros. In this, Peter Ludwig driving another car that had to start from the back, because Ludwig wasn't with the team in Canada, and they came through and got the win, so great job there. Second in the Am category, the number 23 M1 GT Audi of James Dayson finishing. Winning in GT Cup Pro-Am is this 55 Lamborghini of Yuki Hirata. Winning in Am is the Porsche of Friedman. Pro-Am win in GTS is Adam Merzon, the 017 case at Porsche. Then is Parent, who gets some points. That's huge. And then your Am winner in GTS, Greg Lefouge, taking over for Ari Belo. And then the sad thing at the bottom, the 93 Acura of Cox and Wilkins out early. Tough break there. So the field making their way. So our Cadillac move of the race. And it was a beauty, Cal. That was Daniel Murad's pass on Michael Cooper.
Yeah, it was. And it wasn't just the pass, it was the whole half lap to contain the position.
Yeah, started in turn 11, ended in turn 12, and 13, and 14, and 15. It was that good. So congratulations to Daniel Murad and the CRP Racing team. There's Greg Gill, President and CEO of Pirelli World Challenge, giving Pat Long a congratulatory handshake, and as the helmet comes off, we know Jeff Lepper standing down there. Jeff, tell you what, they had a mission and they executed it, didn't they?
Executed that mission to perfection. Pat Long, Jörg Bergmeister comes to Porsches and teammates. There's no more names more famous in all of Porsche Motorsports globally. That is testament to what Jörg did in this race today for you.
Yeah, he's a champ. He's a great friend. We go back almost a decade of racing together. We know what each other likes. He's taught me a lot about what to ask on a Porsche 911 for a race, and he's a pure natural, so thanks to him. These Wright Motorsport guys seem to step up when it counts, and barring any dirty conduct out there, it seems like we've got a car for this championship, so we're going to just try and run our own races and celebrate tonight and then get our heads down for the next two.
Now tell us now, with this full first season with Wright Motorsports, what does that mean with John Wright and doing this program for you this year?
Yeah, John Wright is a class act. He's a racer. He's a self-made man, and all the guys around him love to work for him. He takes care of them. It's a pleasure to be part of this. As a racing driver, everybody sort of reacts differently to environments and race teams, and I found a home here where I feel like part of the guys. They give me equal voice. I give them equal voice, and we just enjoy it.
Well, Pat Long and Jörg Bergmeister, P1 here today, and they got a special thing here this weekend, guys. They might even try to triple up.
Well, they have that opportunity. The way that car is running, I certainly wouldn't put it past them in terms of the realm of possibility here, Cal.
Yeah, as I said, qualifying tomorrow morning is going to be fascinating to see who can pull one out of their bag and get that fast time. And really, it sets up the whole weekend, Greg. Track position is so important. If you get a good start, get a good lap, laid down early, that then sets up the second race, which will effectively be the third race of this triple header. But the second part of what should have been the double header for Circuit of the Americas.
And here's your look at your Pro results. Bergmeister long, and then the Ferrari sits in the second spot, Murad in first. And as you suggested, O'Connell never took her on it. Mr. Cooper doing exactly what he third. Now, that phenomenal battle in the Pro-Am category, the top three covered by a blanket at the finish, and first one across the line, Jeff, James Safronis.
Well, if you remember back to Long Beach a few years ago, it's never truly over till it's over, especially for this guy, James Safronis here, right there at the end. Tell us what happened there. Was no contact or anything, right?
No, I forced braking Tim into a late break moment there in 12. I had a run, and I knew he would pop out at the end, so I faked enough to make him miss his marks, and he just went sailing off. So his car locked up, and I just kind of controlled my braking, even though I was on the edge as well, knowing it was the last lap. But the GMG guys did an unbelievable job. Let me tell you, these guys, we didn't get any practice on Thursday. Porsche Motorsport stepped up and got us a motor in minutes. Their support has been unparalleled to anyone. Come here, big guy. And this guy, he is awesome. I mean, did you see what he did from 19th almost to the front? Scary what he would have done. But Matthew, Porsche Motorsport North America, the GT3R, Pirelli tires, it all came together. I was about to turn my lights on. I'm like, hey, this is going into the dark, but this was fun. Greg, I see you back there. We need to think about some night races. But great for the GMG guys. They really prepared this car. Aki, Ruben, and Chris, especially, tireless effort. So this one feels good.
Matthew, I do want to talk to you here really quick. You got to tell us about that drive. You picked up our Optima battery best start of the award, 4 positions on that very first lap. What was it like coming through the field?
Yeah, it was just incredible. I was pushing like an animal. Yeah, I just took a lot of risk. I knew that I had to take risk through the traffic to bring the car back in the front. We had an incredible pace today, fastest lap of the race. Great car, so I would like to thank GMG and James, because he finished the job. I bring the car P2 and he catch Papas and overtake him, so just incredible. Coming from last is very nice.
Well, like you said that before, Cal, he was jamming.
Yeah, and fast lap of the race, as he mentioned, I mean, he ticked all the boxes here. And here's the best part of the story. During the test day on Thursday, they had a brand new motor in that car, and it wasn't working. And they missed the entire test day doing an engine swap and then come out and lay something down like that. That's a pretty impressive weekend so far. There is your hard charger. That is just a great job that they, for the this team, the 31 Ferrari, up 4 spots over the course of the race. And, of course, the cars that had to start at the back and made their way up because of the driver changes aren't eligible for the hard charger award. So, nonetheless, an absolutely great run for that number 31 car, ending up second as well. So pretty solid there. Here's a look at the official Pro-Am results here. You see the top 3 there, and boy, it was so close. Look at that, the entire podium covered by 1.6 seconds. Good run, too, for Montecalvo and Sanchez, just missing a bit in terms of that speed right at the end there. They started a little bit farther back in the pack. Potter Seafried and Calvert Udell could have been a little bit different, but for that drive-through penalty that they had to deal with as well. But again, one of the nice things is on this weekend you don't get one more shot at it, you get 2 more, and it'll be fun to see how that plays out. And of course, we also have the Am category in this championship as well, and that ended up being that number 30 Momo Ferrari of Ludwig and point leader Enrique Cisneros over the number 23 Audi. And Pro-Am and GT Cup, Yuki Harada and Bresson winning in the Lamborghini, and Am for GT Cup, Friedman and Joe Toussaint. In the GTS Pro-Am category, the 017 Porsche of Adam Merzon, and in the Am category, the 019 Stephen Cameron Racing BMW of Greg Liafouge and Ari Belo. So, on this absolutely beautiful evening, we are going to wrap things up here on our broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We want to welcome you back and encourage you to come back 11:10 Eastern time tomorrow as we get set to go racing for our first of 2 races in the touring car divisions, and it should be a great time indeed. It's 11:10 Eastern, 10:10 Central time here in Texas, and we're going to have lots of action for you. We'll have a GTS race early in the afternoon, and then the next of the SprintX races mid-afternoon tomorrow. We'll keep you up to date. Just join us for that first one, and we'll fill you in for the rest of the day. Thanks so much on behalf of Cal and Jeff. It's been an absolute treat. Beautiful evening here. Barbecue awaits. We'll see you tomorrow.